This is weird, not like... Alright, guys. Donnie Death Milberg here. I'm here with Red, White, and Ben. And we've got a 3-part series. This is part 1 that we're going to start doing for you guys. And before we go into part 1 here, I'd like to explain why we did this. Me and Ben were in the shop one day kind of talking and realized that probably, I'd say about 90% of builds we see in the shop fall within 3 categories. The SPR, DMR type rifles, Mark 18-esque inspired, or, CQBR, shorty, AR pistols or SBR uppers, and then recce builds. And we'll get into what each one is at a later point. But we're going to use this as an intro to, we're going to do a 3-part series on each of those builds, what they are, how they came about, why they are what they are, their uses, and why do you need this. So without further ado, we're going to go over today's, which is the DMR SPR builds, which I know this area especially is very near and dear to Red, White, and Ben's heart. If I remember correctly, when you were with 1-1, you were a DM for your squad, correct?
Yeah, we were running, at the time we were using the M27 IARs as more of impromptu designated marksman rifles. There's about 16 of us before my last deployment that actually went to like a makeshift course that was put on by 1-1 Scout Snipers. And we were running those guns out to 600 yards on 10-inch plates with no problem off a roof. Very fun course of fire to shoot. It's a lot of fun running and gunning and kicking in through doors and shit like that. But something about sitting around a little bit further out and having a couple of seconds of flight time before that steel rings is a lot of fun. So getting out, one of the first things that I wanted to do is I wanted to start building. And that's actually what we're here to talk about today. We've got a few rifles here in front of us, but to really get this started, the SPR came about. SOCOM wanted to find something that they could engage a little bit further out, somewhere around roughly 600 to 700 yards or so. So what they ended up coming up with was the SPR platform, or a lot of people know it as the Mark 12. Typically has a 18-inch barrel. And ends up having a free float system on as far as the rail, and a little bit better of an optic as opposed to what you usually see on the standard rifles of most people in the squad. So here today we've actually got a couple of different variations of ones we've actually done here in-house. This one ended up being mine, and then we've got another one of our guys that works in the shop with us that's got his as well, sporting the PRI rail that you've seen from some of the Mark 12 builds over the years.
It started out, he wanted to go clone correct, and then saw the price of clone correct and went clone inspired, and then I might have stolen his barrel for an online order, and it took him forever to get a new one, and in that time frame of him waiting for it, we ended up talking him into going with a different caliber. And we'll get over into caliber consideration shortly, and SPR, DMR, designated marksman rifle, special purpose rifle, is not a new thing, but it is. I mean, Army's been using M21s, the M14 for a DM rifle for a minute, but the whole military caught on that, you can't have scout snipers attached at all times to every unit. And, in Iraq when I was there, average engagement distance was 50 meters or closer. You don't really need a long distance setup for that. But, with you being in Afghanistan, you'll have some CQB stuff going on, but then you'll also have mountain to mountain, across valleys. You'll have some fucking distant shots. Ambushes, I was watching a video the other night of an ambush that had to have been no less than 300 yards. And I mean, granted, the capabilities of the M4 and the M27 are there, but it's definitely not ideal when you're running even an ACOG 4 power, but especially, an aim point or an EOTech, not ideal to try to hit somebody in brush, in cover from 300 or 400 yards away.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the times, like when we were in Afghanistan, right before that's when our unit initially received the HK rifles. that were supposed to phase out the M249 saw. Which, as a matter of fact, every time that guys went out of the wire from our fob or from PBs around in our AO, they were taking M4s, M16s, they were taking HK rifles, and they were taking saws. And one dude in that squad did have our version of the Mark 12, the SPR rifle that ended up having the Knight's rail as opposed to the PRI, like you see this one over here on the right. Great weapon, especially it makes it a little bit nicer for you to have something in that squad that can engage a little bit further out. Something that's got a can on it, something that had, I believe it was a 2.5 to a 10 power scope on it.
Leopold, I think.
Yeah, when everybody else is running around with a fixed 4, and I want to say the HKs ended up having a fixed 3.4 on them. The new SDO that was supposed to go on the saw, and why that got thrown on there is beyond me.
It's what they had in the armory.
Yeah, it's what they fucking had. But the Mark 12 was a great platform, and it was, it was one of those guns that a lot of guys had fought over because, regular infantry, we didn't get a whole lot of suppressed guns, and it being something that wasn't a standard issue until you really got in country. But then we got to see the capabilities and effectiveness of that rifle itself. It's a pretty good tool to have in that squad for sure.
And it looks fucking cool.
Yeah, I gotta admit, even though that Knight's rail has a pricey cost on it, it's a sexy bitch.
And okay, before we go too deep into this, after all that, somebody might be wondering, okay, that's fucking cool, and I like the stories, and it's a badass rifle, but why the fuck do I need this if I'm not in Afghanistan or Iraq? Well, it's fucking fun. We're seeing more and more DMR type matches taking place. There's been a few I've seen pop up. I think Florida had one, Georgia and Tennessee. Guys are doing a kind of know your limit style targets where you're shooting 500 yards, 100 to 500 yards, from different awkward positions, off cattle gates, off simulated rooftops, barrels, barricades, suspended platforms, stuff like that. So you've got it for that. It's just fun to have. Here in Missouri, it's hard for us to really get past 100 yards, so it kind of sucks. We've got these nice rifles. It's not often we get to run past that, but Ben's got some property he goes to. There is some ranges we can access. At least get 300. To me, these don't get real challenging to shoot, real fun until you can push it out 500 and beyond. Mm-hmm. But also, you have some real-world experience using this exact rifle and going hunting. That it is a multi-role rifle.
Yeah, I took this exact setup minus maybe, I think I had a different buttstock on it then, but that was about it. But last year I took this hog hunting and shot it was somewhere between 250 pound to a 300 pound hog. I was using 64 grain Freedom Munitions bore busters in this gun, and I put one right through its skull, and it dropped at about 150 yards, which is no crazy feat by any stretch of the means, but that is we're talking about a bore that was a couple inches longer than this whole setup itself, and this is an 18-inch barrel with roughly an 8.3 or 8.5 inch can. So it's kind of a big animal. A lot of people out there will say you can't really take anything down. 5.56 doesn't have a whole lot of stopping power, but at the same point in time, it's all about shot placement and
finding the right round, bullet.
Right round, right bullet, all that kind of stuff. And that soft point went right through its fucking skull, and that was it. And I only shot one more time just to keep it from fucking moving. Just sitting there on the ground, kicking and bleeding out. It's a good time.
So, diving into this now. We'll get into kind of the main considerations and main parts that make this a DMR SPR and isn't just another AR with a cool rail and a scope on it. Because anybody can throw a free float rail on, throw a scope on, and oh look, I built an SPR. But we've got, we talked and went through everything and found the main parts that you really want to spend the money on to make this a legit SPR DMR. I get it, there's better rounds out there to shoot distance. That's not the point. One of the first points is this is built off an AR-15 platform. Everybody's got AR-15. Not everybody's got AR-10. So first thing, this is off an AR-15 platform. Military-wise, if you're trying to be clone correct, this is only in 223 or 5.56. That's all you're going to find it in. However, this right here, we've got in 224 Valkyrie. There is some new rounds. We've been spending the morning reading up on 22 Nosler, which, according to Nosler's site, at 1,000 yards, has almost 2 feet less drop than even 224, which is impressive. And it's something like 8 feet less drop than 5.56. So, different calibers to keep in consideration. Again, you're not clone correct and sticking with the 5.56 tradition, but, 22 Nosler and 224 Valkyrie. Again, those, though, you're going to get those velocities and that type of accuracy out of a longer barrel, whereas 5.56, you're going to stick with that 18. The whole point of this was not to have a bench gun, but, this thing, it is still no problem to shoulder fire and engage targets. And with it being a low-power variable optic, there's no issue with closer stuff, whereas using a high magnification. But we'll get into that. Anyways, we'll go off 5.56. If you want to make it your own and do different calibers, go for it, but we're going to stick to just talking about 5.56. One of the first things, barrels. What did you go with?
So in this one, I've got the Ballistic Advantage 18-inch barrel. This ends up being one of their fluted barrels, so to keep it a little bit lighter weight. My whole idea behind this project was to, be able to move around with this gun, and even though that it does have an 18-inch barrel and one of the heavier cans in the market on the end of it, it's still a very easy gun to manipulate. I would actually venture to say my 18-inch gun without my can is probably lighter than my SPR without my can.
I gotta say too, personally, I think it's one of the top best balanced builds I've ever messed with, where even though it looks deceiving, now with the can on, it's front heavy, obvious, there's no way around that. But this rifle looks heavy with the can off, but you pick it up and you're immediately, that's the first thing everybody comments is, oh, that's not as bad as I thought. It really, if you had to patrol with this all day, if you had to shoot close up and maneuver, it's not a problem.
Yeah, and especially, I usually run a 2-point sling on this, and I've got a few different areas that I can actually, lock my sling in. So whether I want to keep that close or close points like this, so I have a little bit more slack, or if I want to run this as furthest out as I can, then that way I can keep it a little bit tighter to the body. But for the most part, I'll leave that a little bit loose. And when I am running around, I'm probably going to keep this up like that, just because it's a little bit easier to bring that down into your shoulder as opposed to bringing that suppressor up. Not that it is bad, it is a little front heavy, but at the same point in time, very easy gun to throw around. Another thing about that is it's one of Ballistic Advantage's top tier barrels that they make. It's their one of their bead blasted Hansen barrels, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Sub-MOA accuracy. And again, another option, we have the 18-inch SPR barrel. This is in 223 Wild, Wildy. And we also have the 5.56 version that's in your traditional DMR Mark 18 or Mark 12 style, where it even has the Ops 12 collar for the Ops 12 brakes, so you can run the AEM suppressor. I think we're out of stock on those right now. I'm waiting for a shipment to come in. I'm not sure if we have those in stock right now either, but again, I have those, or by the time this video is up, may have those in stock literally any day, waiting for those to come in.
Yeah, I think we're sitting on a 20-inch barrel of this, or a 20-inch barrel of that same version with the fluted and everything like that.
Yeah. You could do a 16 if you want, but now you're getting towards more recce build, which we're going to get into in a different video. Primarily, you're going to see the DMRs, the SPRs, the Mark 12s in 18, and that's it. 20, you're getting a little longer, the same size as an M16A4. You still get, I think, with the Mark 12, that is a 20, isn't it? Well, the early models, when they were DM rifles, they were literally just redoing A4s with free floats and suppressors before they had an actual rifle.
Yeah, the first several ones that were built were 18-inch barrels, and that's just kind of the standard of what you need. You really only need 18 inches on that barrel to get the full burn rate. So And anything else past that, especially if you're going to run a can on it, is going to get a little bit heavier and it's going to push that weight out a little bit further. So 18 for me is kind of that sweet spot. Ends up being a real easy gun to shoot, especially this one with the way that this barrel's cut. It actually ends up being a rifle length gas system. So it ends up, I'll throw my can on there. I've actually got an adjustable block, so I'll turn that gas down a little bit, and I've got a very smooth shooting rifle with a bolt carrier group that's got an NP3 plus coating and a JP sound capture spring in the back. It ends up being a real smooth cycling gun.
Oh, optics. So you said you're probably looking at doing a scope that works for the meantime, but typically, as we already went over with the Mark 12, you're going to find a 2 to 10, 2.5 to 10, 3 to 12, 3 to 15, somewhere, not a 5 to 25, but not typically a 1 to 4, 1 to 6, or 1 to 8. Again, that's more, something you'd see on a recce rifle. You're looking at mid-range magnification, where on the low side, you're looking at 2 to 4, on the high side, only 12 to 15. Reasons, you can still, on 2 power, it's not as fast as a red dot or a 1 power, but you can still bring that up and acquire a target relatively quick. But with, 12 power, 10 power, that's still plenty to reach at a distance. And scout snipers are using, or at least were using, 10 power magnification for their max, or 12. And me personally, I tried shooting steel at 1,115 yards, and at 25 power, shit's moving around so much, you're not going to get a stable shot. And it's actually easier, even at a grand, to try shooting at around 12 to 14 power range. There's almost, other than if you're trying to spot something or see a target, really no point in going past like 16 or 18 power. So for these types of rifles, especially in 5.56, where you're not really going to surpass 800 yards, a 2 to 10, 2.5 to 10, maybe a 4 to 12. There's some Vortex Vipers in the 2 to 10 first focal plane that are perfect for something like this. We've also got an Athlon 2.5 to 10 by 44, I think, that we offer.
So 2.5 to 15.
Yeah.
2.5 to 15, which I really like that. I would never see myself shooting on the full 15, but you can crank it up to 8 to 10 and make your shots with that. But even then, if you're still unsure about something, you can crank that back all the way up to 15. Kind of get a sight of what you're looking at, so you can kind of paint a picture for you or your squad a little bit better. And then from there, back that down and take that shot.
And it's the perfect all-around magnification levels on a platform like this for what you're doing. So whatever your favorite optic is, we've got some here on our website, shop.TacticalSht.com. You can look up Athlon and Viper or Vortex. I probably need to add those Vipers in. We haven't carried them before. They discontinued them and then brought them in with the new PST Gen 2s. And that's a recent addition to having a first focal plane. They previously were second focal plane. Another big one that you and me have become major fucking snobs on, triggers. Like, we're almost assholes. Like, somebody be like, "Oh, what do you think of my gun?" We'll look through and put, "Oh, your trigger's shit. Rest of the gun's cool. Trigger's shit." You don't know how much trigger makes a difference until you have some high-end triggers and then go back to shooting those spec, and it destroys you in everything. Like, it makes such a big difference in so many different ways. Triggers make a huge difference. What do you got in yours?
So,
why?
This one's always had a longer barrel its entire life. When this gun originally started out, it had a 16-inch barrel from Bagara. Once I built one of my SBRs, I ended up throwing this 18 in there. But I've been running a Geisley SDC in here, which is a 2-stage trigger. I think my first stage is right around 2 pounds. My second stage is right around 2.5. But it's good, crisp, clean break all the way through. One of my favorite companies to buy triggers from. They just got good amount of take up right there on that wall, and then it breaks really well. I haven't been able to get off the Geisley bandwagon for a while. Yeah. I think I run an SDC in this gun. I've got an SSA in my SBR, and I've even got their Super Scar trigger in my Scar 17. which is probably the SSA and the Super Scar are probably two of my favorite triggers that I have. But this year we did go to SHOT Show. We've been messing around with Trigger Tech triggers, which is probably what I'll end up swapping out and throwing into this gun.
That kind of opened we weren't ready for that, and it kind of opened our minds, especially with the release of there are other ones, they're competitive, they're adaptable, they're good, but then you feel that diamond and fuck.
Yeah, it's their diamond they claim is a 2-stage trigger. Whereas your first stage has no weight to it, and then your second stage...
4 ounces is the first stage.
Yeah, your second stage ends up being 1.5 pounds to 4. It's fully adjustable. If you get the one for the Remington 700, it ends up being 32 ounces down to 4 ounces, which is a little insane, but it's still phenomenal product. So I would say for my vote, I hate to discount our triggers, which we've got a bang switch in this one over here, which is our in-house one.
Sal loves it in his. He went with this. He's got it and everything. It is a fantastic trigger. Again, this isn't my rifle. This is one of our other guys. I just grabbed it. I don't have an SPR yet. I will say I wouldn't go this route. You know me. I love single stage triggers, except when it comes to something like this. My bolt guns. I've got ridiculous single-stage, sub 1 pound single-stage triggers in my precision rifle. But for a gas gun, for a DMR or SPR type rifle, I will not run anything other than a solid 2-stage. And like Ben said, I'm tied right now. I'm torn between the SSAE and I'd say the Trigger Tech Diamond. The Diamond is kind of in the lead for the fact that SSAE, and maybe when it breaks in a little bit better and it's not in a tester, it's more tangible. But finding that wall and holding there can sometimes be difficult, and I'll set it off before I'm ready. That Trigger Tech Diamond has the most distinct wall I have ever felt in my life, where you can finger bang it to that wall all day long and it won't go off, and you feel right at the moment where it hits the wall, and then a crisp, no matter where you dial it in, let it be 1.5, 4 pounds. It is the crispest just break right there I've ever felt. So, if you're behind the gun and you're really, really, pulling that slack and one more good breath, one more solid sight picture and break, I feel like it'd be hard to beat that Trigger Tech Diamond. But a very close second for me would be the Geissele SSAE. Again, for you guys wanting to build one, it's all preference. But from our experience and literally hundreds we've helped people build or built ourselves here, I'd say SDC, SSA, SSAE, or the Trigger Tech Diamond, hands down.
Yeah, no, those are very solid triggers. I'm a huge fan of the 2-stage triggers just because, like he was saying, you can take out that take up in the first stage, kind of preload into your shot, kind of take that breath, do a quick exhale, and then fire on that natural respiratory pause. So it does make it a little bit easier to do that with a 2-stage trigger, especially. That's one of the things I do like about this one is, I do have that 2 pound first stage, but once I get to that second stage, it's 2.5. So not that it's going to push my shot off a whole lot. In fact, it usually doesn't because I have such a stable shooting platform to shoot from. But when I do get to that second stage, it is a nice clean break, and it does break the way that I want it to, without there being any minimal drift. So it does make it a lot easier, and especially that the SDC being a flat face trigger, I can get a little bit lower on there, get a little bit more leverage, and it's hard to go back to anything after you've had nice triggers like these.
Yeah. Free float, and again, we're going off the parts that we think are the most important and that we believe really make it in SPR. We could get into grip, we could get into bipods or no bipods and which bipods, we could get into which stocks, which buffer systems, which charging handles. That's all, even if you're doing a clone build, you're going to see 20 different variations, especially when it gets to SF where they're allowed to modify their shit a little bit more. You're going to see Ace skeleton stocks, Magpul CTR, SOP mod stock, everything under the sun. There is no set way to do it. The clone shit is cool and I love it, but at the same time, there is no one thing like this is the only way to do it and that's it. it's setting it up for what you're comfortable with and how you want it. We're just going over what we believe are the most important parts to making this the most accurate, well-made setup, well-balanced setup. Because I believe another big thing about the Mark 12 is it's not a bench gun only. It is something you can shoulder fire. You can shoot off different barricades. You're going to be in awkward positions, and you're going to be humping with it. So you want something that is well-balanced, and that if you had to clear a rim with this and then pop up on a window or some sort of barricade and shoot something at 500 yards, you could do both without changing anything.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Free float rails. You've got probably what, and I'll admit it slowed down a little bit in the shop, but for a while was our number one selling rail. As you already pointed out, Sal went with the legit, Mark 12 clone, PRI Gen 3 carbon fiber rail. I like this rail. It's fucking expensive. It has that, oh damn, what's that? Or for those who know, oh shit, a Mark 12 look to it. He's missing the top rail, but he didn't want to spend the money. Whatever. The pores will be pores. But I like the fact that it's carbon fiber, but it actually has a bit of weight to it. But it's all right here in the barrel nut, so the center of gravity is right where you want it, in my opinion. I really like the weight balance. This thing is perfect. That being said, what do you got on yours?
So this is one of the original runs of the Bravo Company KMR Alpha. I don't know what they're doing these days, or maybe I'm just stupid, but I feel like the original KMR Alphas are a little bit lighter than the ones they're making today. Earlier I was talking about how I'm running a fluted barrel on here just because I wanted as much accuracy as I could while trying to keep the weight down on this gun. So fluted barrel, and then the 15-inch KMR Alpha ends up keeping that gun pretty light up front. I mean, if I don't have a can on here, I can whip this gun around easier than I can my 11.5, which is kind of ridiculous at some point in times. But I like the KMR. It ends up, the way these two pieces lock into here to keep it to the barrel nut, it's very secure.
Every single one of these we've installed to get the free float over the fucking barrel nut. So it's a barrel nut, obviously. The rail goes over the barrel nut. There's an alignment block that mates the rail with the receiver, and then two counter screws that lock in. There is no way this fucker's coming off. But the first time me and him installed them, the thing we noticed right off the bat is this is such a tight-fitting, well-made rail. BCM, what else do you expect? You literally have to take a rubber mallet and a block and tap the fucking rail over the barrel nut. You could run this thing just on the barrel nut itself and it would probably stay pretty steady. You throw in that alignment block, which is nice because you don't have to sit there and try to make sure it's all perfectly aligned. It aligns it for you. I mean, you tighten down it, you're done. This is, for us, this is one of the fastest installing free floats on the market right now, too. Add in those two counter screws, that fucker is not going anywhere. And it's also, coincidentally, one of the lightest in the market and pretty reasonably priced, too. We've got these for $210.
Pretty reasonably priced, and I've been running this rail, has been on this build for about close to 4 years now. Obviously, it's been painted several times. I've got a few gashes in this rail here and there.
Ben is not easy on his shit. This is not a fucking safe queen. This has been tossed around in the bed of your truck. This has been knocked down at the shop a few times. Been on some hunts.
Slammed into barricades, everything like that. I've got a few gashes in my rail, and even though I knew the BCM was going to have quality, and I not that I didn't trust them or anything like that, but it being one of the lighter rails on the market, I was slightly skeptical. And after the 4 years of use and abuse that I've put this thing through, it's been nothing but solid. And I've never had a single issue with it, and it's been a good one for me. Does keep that build a little bit lighter, on the lighter side, so that I do like. And I knew as soon as I threw that 18-inch barrel in there, I was going to definitely keep this on there, just because I was going to try to keep that as light as possible. Because this is a gun, more often than not. I have a 1:4 on here, something that's real low magnification, nothing crazy, nothing special, but it's got a good reticle. And more often than not, if I'm walking around my property, this is the gun I'm carrying. I'm not carrying my SBR or anything like that. This gun just shoots so smooth that this is usually my go-to. I like this more than most of my other guns that I have. And because of that, with a 1-4, like I said, nothing special, but there's not much that I can't hit on my own property. And sometimes that 4 power does make it a little bit challenging, but that's most of the fun. So, it's nice to be able to walk around with this all day long and not feel tired or feel worn out, because I did build this well as far as how the weight is distributed on the gun. So.
Don't like key mod? MCMR. We have that in stock too. It's the same exact rail, but M-Lock. What's some other rails? I don't think the Atlas would work, because, if you want to go full operator, you'd want, a PEC or a D-ball or something like that, an IR designator on it. I'd say, obviously, the PRI is another good one. We've still got a few of those in stock. I'd say probably a Fortis Rev 2 wouldn't be a bad option.
Yeah, Fortis Rev 2, or, if you're like me and you're going to run an adjustable gas block on here because you're a fan of suppressors like most of us are, the Fortis switch wouldn't be a bad idea, too.
Yeah, that's a good one.
The Fortis switch will have a little lever right here, and all you got to do is pull back a tab, swing that arm open, and then your rail slides right off. So if you're not lucky and fortunate like me, where my gas block ends up, my adjustment sits right here just outside my rail, then you can get that Fortis switch, and if you need to, pull that rail off, adjust that on the fly, and then throw it back on and keep going.
And if you got money to burn, you can always, and I might carry it. TJ keeps saying to bring them in, but it's one of those things where they're so fucking expensive, I don't want to be responsible for them sitting. You can get the Raz or the Riz from Knights Armament, the legit mid-length one, the free-floating one from Knights Armament. They're around about $550, I want to say, give or take. I mean, it's expensive. Now, granted, your rifle will stand out. Anybody who knows what that is will know what the fuck that is and appreciate the money you spent and your attention to detail.
If you walk by me with it, I'd drool.
Yeah. But, I mean, in the end, you're getting it for those reasons. It's not like it stands out as that much better than any of the rest of them. Personally, I think your setup is probably one of the better ones. Sal's is great, too, which I think we can get into now. Again, we're not going to go too crazy with different calibers and stuff, but ammo. Coincidentally enough, when they're trying to figure out what round to use for the Mark 12s and the DMRs, they also discovered it was the perfect round for the Mark 18s, the short barrel rifles. 77 grain Sierra Match King. Especially if you're going 5.56 and you got that 1 in 7. 223 will do like he's got. Is a 1 in 8 twist. At least that's the way Ballistic Advantage does it. They stick with 1 in 8. I don't know how well the 77 does. I'd still say with 1 in 8, that's kind of in the middle twist. You should be good with everything from 55 to 77. But I would think with that rated twist, you may do better with a 62 grain.
Yeah, and there's about a year ago, I took this out and I was shooting about 400 yards. And I ran 55s, 62s, 64s, and some 75s, and they all ran really good. I think, if my memory serves me correct, the 62s and the 64s were what ran the best and what I was getting the most consistency out of. That hog I shot, that was a 64 grain bore buster round, which is nothing more than a soft tip round that mushrooms out when it hits, but. It being a 1 in 8 twist gun, I can go kind of the middle of the road without spending a whole lot of money, and still get some really good consistency out of it.
Yeah, you get the 5.56 1 in 7. You really want to get what's made for that gun. Black Hills 77 grain Match Kings,
which they were the they were one of the original people that had help in with building that Mark 12 program. They were making the original ammo for it.
Mark 262 Mod 0, and now they're on the Mod 1 is the exact round. Apparently, you can actually get legit Mark 262 ammo out there. I'm sure you pay out the ass, but for those of you not wanting to pay out the ass to get the actual military-issued ammo, Black Hills 77 grain, or really any 77 grain Match King. I would venture to say with the right optic and a solid barrel, be able to push that out 800 meters. I mean, it's impressive what you can do to these things. People think 5.56 is 500, maybe 600. You can push it further than you think. Those heavier bullets fight the wind a little bit better, stay a little bit more stable, especially when they go transonic. 224 like Sal's got, he's got 1 in 7, 74 grain or 88. I don't know if the 1 in 7 is that great with the 90s. I would think for for the 90 grains, you want that 1 in 6.5 like Faxon's doing. But 74s, me and Ben kind of got into 224 Valkyrie when we shot an LMT at SHOT Show, and we're literally doing rapid fire, not mag dumps, but rapid fire at a grand, and just ting, 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 and we're just blown away. Recoil's like a 5.56. It's on a 5.56 platform. Nothing felt different, but here we are, sending round after round downrange and hitting steel at a rapid fire rate, just with a 1-8 scope. Now it was a fucking Schmidt and Bender, but it's still a 1.8 nonetheless, and that's what, holy shit, realizing maybe 224 was something to pay attention to. They're still trying to figure out the twist rate and ammo thing. It is a new round. Personally, I'd say if you're going to build one of these, this is meant to be a battle rifle, therefore you'd want it in a NATO round and keep it in something common. And just for nostalgic reasons, I'd say you want to get it in 223 or 5.56. Why not?
Yeah, and I mean, like I said earlier, part of the fun of running a 1-4 is the challenge that you face with, pushing those shots out a little bit further. But, shooting 5.56 out that far it's a lot of fun because it is a little bit of work once you push it out to that range. But, we were shooting 600 yards, that impromptu designated marksman course with 16.5-inch HK barrels. So if it can be done with a 16.5 at 600 yards, just imagine what you can do with 18 at that same range.
Other than that, man, what else you got?
Other than that, a lot of the times you'll see the Mark 12 program, a lot of guys are actually running, as opposed to everybody else in the military running A2 flash hiders, we end up running brakes on ours. So whether I'm shooting with or without my can, I got a pretty flat shooting gun. When I was running this about a year ago at 400 yards, I was actually standing in my truck bed with my bipod out on my roof of my truck. And 400 yards, I was shooting a steel target that's about 2/3 the torso, not including the arms, and was just shooting rapid fire, bang, 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 and hitting steel all day long. Even though my truck does shake a little bit when you start moving in it, but it was very easy to get consistent, accurate, fast follow-up shots at 400 yards. It was Mother's Day weekend, so I tried to set up and do it as fast as possible, and still got a little bit of shooting in. But it was still a good time, and it was a great shooting rifle. But other than that, ammo, stick with 77 if you're going to go with that traditional twist rate. Optics, 2.5 to 10, maybe 15 if you want to get a little bit ballsy. The barrel, the trigger, optics, that's where you want to spend that money. A good muzzle brake will go a long way. Me, I like to run a bolt care group that's got a good coating on it, like NP3. I like JP Silent Capture Springs just because it does make it inherently smoother. But
Silent Capture Spring, we'll take that for a second. Every AR you own has a Silent Capture Spring, correct?
Everything but my Scar, because they don't make them.
JP, if you're listening, is there a way you guys can make that happen?
Yeah,
we'd sell it.
I need a silent capture for my Scar 17.
Same thing. I have a couple short barrel uppers on my lower. I have my 3-gun competition rifle, same silent captured. Even my ridiculous short barrel 308 suppressed runs a silent captured AR-10 heavy. Man, if there was one thing people were like, you had to choose one thing to do to your rifle, I'd honestly be torn between a trigger and a JP silent captured. We are not sponsored. We sound like this is a fucking ad for JP silent captured. We are not sponsored by them. We do not get free silent captured from them. Hint, hint.
I would chill for you.
Yeah. we honestly just believe in that product that much. The amount of silent captures me and Ben sell personally between the two of us because of our rifles and, you know, how smooth they are, the feel, and the fact that you can fine-tune your rifle so well, especially like what he's got with an adjustable gas block, how stupid smooth you can get these rifles to. Seriously, if you don't have a silent capture, you know what? It's $130 to $175. Save up, fork out the extra money, throw it in a rifle just to find out. But I challenge any of you to not fall in love with it. There is, you know, we've got the JSE ones, we've got the ArmaSpec versions. There is cheaper versions. We haven't had a problem with them. Ben's tested the JSE and he's been happy with it. But we're hard pressed to get away from our JP silent captures just because, fuck, we've been running, I think 4 or 5 years now. I've been running mine. You got yours right after I got mine, and then I ended up every rifle I built since then. Same with you, has them in there. I can't get away. I mean, it completely, that grindy, pingy crunch sound, gone. But also it smooths the rifle out. You can change the weights, you can change the spring rates, and you can fine-tune that rifle so well that it's just mind-blowing. I mean, you'd have to shoot his rifle right here to see what we're talking about, but when you combine a good muzzle device with the right gas system and the right buffer system, you think you've shot a smooth-firing rifle before, or, you know, so many times we're 5.56, 2.23, you don't have no fucking recoil, don't need to do all this shit. Okay, but when you can double tap a target at 300 yards and have rounds almost on top of each other, do that with your stock M&P Sport or your DPMS or whatever. Not going to happen. I mean, you can get these things and the recoil impulse so smooth, it is unbelievable. I mean, you're doing double taps at 200 and 300 yards like it's nothing. It really is a wonderful piece of gear.
Oh, yeah.
Other than that, it's all we've got for the DMR SPRs. I believe next we're going to go ahead and do the Mark 18s, CQBRs, and basically short barrel battle rifle. Why, aside from this, that's especially for me, that's kind of my go-to setup. I want to build one of these, but it's almost hard for me to get away from the CQBR because it's so versatile as well. We'll get into that. And then I think the last part of the series, we're going to go over the recce rifles. What the fuck is a recce rifle? Basically, easiest way to explain it, I would say, was if you combined a fucking Mark 18 and a DMR into a baby, that's what you'd have. Again, we're going through these because these are what we probably see people do here the most, what we guide people towards, and in our opinion, between the three of these are the most versatile setups you can have in the AR platform and really take advantage of the AR platform as a whole. Thanks, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. If our editor dude can do it, hopefully we'll have links for those optics and those barrels and these free floats as well for you to click on and order this. We will both be following the comment section of this, so if you have questions, hit us up, let us know. Dude, for the next one, we'll go through the comments and maybe write some of the good ones down. Yeah. And we'll start off part 2 with answering some of your questions. And we'll just keep doing this. You know what? If there's more stuff you want us to go over, give us ideas. Give us tips. This came from watching a video online that was kind of along the same lines of this, and it was great, but it was also a BCM ad pretty much, which we love BCM, but we realized, we see a lot of people building these. Let's put our 2 cents in. And this is, 3 platforms we're really passionate about. So like, comment, subscribe. Tell Ben how fucking glorious his goddamn mullet is. If you got questions, leave in the comments. We'll review those, and we'll have answers for you next video. Stay tuned for part 2, Mark 18s and CQBRs.
I'll be there with my fucking mullet.
Fuck yeah.